We're used to treating patients with respiratory failure, but patterns and the manifestations of the disease in these patients is just distinctly different. And figuring out how to treat them and having a good protocol to treat them was really important. We worked very hard as a team with our medical colleagues to talk about changing our protocols or treatments, things that we've seen, things that we've read or talked to our colleagues around the country or around the world. There's a lot to be gained from the experience of other physicians, and I think patients should feel quite safe and should put their minds at ease that coming to get care from us in our various practice locations around the state is safe and in their best interest.
Brown Emergency Medicine started preparing for COVID back in January. One of our faculty members, Dr. Slim Sooner, is the director of disaster preparedness for Rhode Island Hospital. As the number of patients increased and the number of patients we needed to screen increased, it became obvious that there would not be enough personal protective equipment to use it as we always had. We've redesigned the way patients arrive and come through the emergency department in order to screen for COVID, to have barriers up, to have adequate personal protective equipment for staff and for patients. Another way that Brown Emergency Medicine played a critical response was Dr. Rory Merritt of Brown Emergency Medicine spearheaded an effort to obtain hundreds of tablets and deliver them to healthcare facilities in Rhode Island to let patients have video contact with their families and caregivers at this time when they were in the hospital but couldn't have visitors.
The pre-planning was really terrific. We had to change our ICUs around to allow for so many COVID patients. We decided that the COVID patients needed to be cohorted into specific areas. That way, the people who were caring for them were most familiar with it, knew how to go about it, were less likely to have breaks in their infection control protocol.
During the pandemic, we've had to obviously adapt and pivot like many of the departments have. We've basically been emphasizing only essential dermatology services seen here in the office. Also, our dermatology residents have really stepped up for us, and they've actually served alongside with the medicine house staff to come up with guidelines for the frontline healthcare workers. They've actually developed a handout listing some of the common dermatologic concerns that come from wearing a mask and PPE all day, such as hand dermatitis, acne, folliculitis underneath the mask, facial ulcerations from the mask. And so they've actually developed a handout that we've distributed to all the frontline healthcare workers to help with some of the dermatologic issues.
The common urologic problems without COVID remain the same common problems COVID patients would have. One of the most common emergencies that we see would be patients who have kidney stones that have blocked the kidney. They might have a urine infection, and that's a relative emergency where you have to do something to unblock it. COVID really brought out the value of being part of a multi-specialty practice, particularly an academic one. We would update on what each of us are doing with COVID, how it's affecting us, what suggestions or things that we found helpful that might be useful for the others. It really gave us much more rapid access to both information, workarounds, and those kinds of things than we would have been if we were trying to invent each wheel solo by ourselves.
All of our faculty volunteered to be redeployed in other areas of the hospital. Overall, there was an incredibly altruistic spirit, a desire to go above and beyond, to step out of conventional roles. People inserted themselves into positions that could have exposed them to greater risk, but they did it because of their commitment to caring for patients. Overall, our doctors put in longer hours, took care of more patients, and maintained the integrity of our services, supporting our residents who continue to function throughout this period and helping us really redesign care on almost a daily basis as the situation in Rhode Island changed.